The last evening at Rousseau's, the crystal chandeliers cast their familiar warm glow across the dining room of Rousseau's, the upscale French restaurant where Daniel had proposed to Caroline 3 years ago. Tonight, those same lights seemed dimmer somehow, as if they too understood the weight of what was about to unfold. Their daughter Emma, just 4 years old, sat between them clutching her beloved teddy bear, Mr. Buttons, blissfully unaware that this would be their final dinner together as a family. Caroline smoothed down her beige blazer, a nervous habit Daniel had come to recognize over their 7 years together. She wore the same outfit she'd worn to her mother's funeral last spring. Appropriate, she thought grimly, since tonight felt like another kind of death. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that intricate braid Emma loved to watch her create each morning. A morning routine that would soon belong to only one household or the other. Daniel had chosen his navy suit carefully, the one Caroline had bought him for their anniversary. He wanted to look put together, to show her he was trying, even though they both knew it was too late. His hand rested protectively on Emma's small shoulder, as she pointed excitedly at something across the room, her innocent joy a stark contrast to the grief sitting heavy between her parents. "Daddy, look, that lady has a sparkly dress." Emma's voice cut through the tension like a beam of light through storm clouds. Daniel forced a smile. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you." Caroline watched them together, memorizing the scene. How many more moments like this would there be? The custody arrangement they'd tentatively discussed with their lawyers meant alternating weeks, holidays split down the middle like their marriage was being divided. Emma would have 2 bedrooms, 2 sets of toys, 2 different lives depending on the calendar. The waiter approached with practiced elegance, but even his professional demeanor couldn't mask the sympathy in his eyes. He'd served them many times before, anniversaries, celebration dinners, that magical evening when Daniel had gotten down on one knee right here at table 12. Now the waiter recognized the signs, the forced politeness, the careful space between them, the way they both focused intently on their daughter rather than each other. "The usual for the young mademoiselle?" the waiter asked gently. "Chicken tenders and the fruit plate?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, making Mr. Buttons nod too. "And chocolate milk, please." Caroline and Daniel ordered mechanically, neither really caring about food. The coq au vin Caroline selected had been Daniel's favorite once. He ordered the bouillabaisse without really reading the menu. They'd shared so many meals here, knew every dish, every wine pairing. Soon this place would belong to one of their separate memories instead of their shared history. As they waited for their food, Caroline found herself studying the restaurant as if seeing it for the first time and the last time simultaneously. The burgundy curtains that framed windows overlooking the city lights, the soft classical music playing in the background. Debussy, always Debussy, the fresh flowers on each table. They'd celebrated so much life within these walls, now they were here to mourn. "Emma, sweetie, Mommy and Daddy need to talk to you about something," Caroline began, her voice shakier than she'd intended. Daniel placed his hand over Caroline's on the table, the first time they'd touched in weeks. Not a romantic gesture, but a lifeline, a reminder that they were in this together even as they were coming apart. "We both love you very, very much," Daniel continued, his throat tight. "More than anything in the whole world. You know that, right?" Emma looked between her parents with those wide, perceptive eyes that seemed to see more than a 4-year-old should. "Are you sad, Mommy?" A tear escaped down Caroline's cheek before she could stop it. "Sometimes. Grown-ups feel sad, honey, but not because of you. Never because of you." The food arrived and they fell into a strained silence, encouraging Emma to eat while they pushed food around their own plates. Daniel watched Caroline help Emma cut her chicken, the gentle patience she showed, the love evident in every gesture. He'd fallen in love with Caroline partly because of how she cared for others, her patience at the hospital where she worked as a pediatric nurse, her aging father, the stray animals she'd always wanted to rescue. She would have cared for their marriage the same way if he'd let her, if he hadn't buried himself in work, in excuses, in the gradual distance that had grown between them like weeds in an untended garden. Caroline caught his gaze and saw the regret there. She felt it too. Not regret for leaving, but regret for all the moments they'd missed, all the conversations they'd avoided, all the small deaths their relationship had suffered before this final one. They'd been good once, so good. High school sweethearts who'd beaten the odds, or so everyone said. College in different states hadn't broken them. His medical residency with its brutal hours hadn't broken them. Even Emma's difficult birth, the 6 weeks she'd spent in the NICU, had only brought them closer. It was the quiet things that had broken them. The way Daniel stopped really listening when Caroline talked about her day. The way Caroline stopped reaching for him in the night. The arguments about whose career took priority, whose parents they'd visit for holidays, who forgot to pay the electric bill. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, her therapist had called it. "Mommy, why are you and Daddy being so quiet?" Emma asked, her intuition too sharp for comfort. Daniel took a deep breath. They'd practiced this with the child psychologist, had the words ready, but somehow they still felt inadequate. "Emma, you know how your friend Sophie has 2 houses? One with her mommy and one with her daddy?" Emma nodded slowly, her expression growing serious. "Well, Mommy and Daddy are going to have 2 houses too. But the special thing is, you get to be in both houses. You'll have your room at Mommy's new apartment with all your books and dolls, and your room at the old house with Daddy will have your art supplies and dress-up clothes. Will Mr. Buttons come to both houses?" Emma's question broke Caroline's heart. "Mr. Buttons goes everywhere you go," Caroline managed to say. "We'd never separate you two." Unlike us, she thought bitterly. Unlike a family that once promised forever. Emma processed this information with the remarkable adaptability of children, but also with a sadness that aged her small face. Can't we all just live in the same house? Why do we need 2? It was the question they'd been dreading, the one without a good answer that a 4-year-old could understand. How do you explain to a child that love sometimes isn't enough? That 2 people can care deeply for each other and still not be right together? That sometimes the healthiest thing is to separate before the resentment turns into something toxic? Sometimes grown-ups are happier in different houses, Daniel tried. And when Mommy and Daddy are happier, we can be better parents to you. We can have more fun with you, give you more attention. It was partially true. The constant tension in their home had begun affecting Emma. Her nightmares, her clinginess, the way she'd started acting out at preschool. Their therapist had made it clear. Staying together for the children often did more harm than good when the relationship had deteriorated this far. But it still felt like failure. Like they were breaking a sacred promise they'd made to their daughter the day she was born. The dinner continued with forced cheerfulness. They pointed out things around the restaurant to distract Emma, asked her about preschool, her favorite cartoons, anything to move past the heavy conversation. The waiter brought dessert, crème brulee to share, another tradition from happier times, and they made a show of letting Emma crack the caramelized sugar with her spoon, delighting in her giggles. Caroline watched Daniel wipe chocolate from Emma's cheek with his napkin, his touch so gentle. He'd been a good father from the start, present at every doctor's appointment during the pregnancy, coaching Caroline through those terrifying NICU weeks, walking the floors at night when Emma had colic. The thought of Emma not having him there every day caused physical pain in Caroline's chest. "I'm sorry," Daniel said suddenly, looking at Caroline with raw honesty. "For all of it, for not being what you needed." "I'm sorry too," Caroline whispered back, "for giving up, for not fighting harder." But they both knew this wasn't about giving up. It was about accepting reality. They'd done the counseling, read the books, tried date nights and communication exercises and all the things couples are supposed to do. Some things simply couldn't be fixed, no matter how much 2 people might wish otherwise. Emma had chocolate all over her face now, grinning at them both with the resilience of childhood. She would be okay, their therapist assured them. Children were remarkably adaptable, and they were committed to co-parenting with respect and communication. They would never speak badly of each other to Emma, would present a united front on rules and discipline, would celebrate birthdays and school events together. They could be better divorced parents than they'd been married ones lately. The restaurant was beginning to empty as the evening grew late. Other families came and went, couples on dates, groups of friends celebrating. Life continuing as it always did, oblivious to the small tragedies playing out at individual tables. Daniel paid the bill, one last act of the husband he'd been, though they'd long since separated their finances in preparation for the divorce. Next month, Caroline would be in her own apartment across town. The house they'd bought together, painted together, filled with memories, would belong solely to Daniel. She hadn't wanted it anyway, haunted as it would be with ghosts of their former happiness. They bundled Emma into her coat, and she insisted on both parents holding her hands as they walked to the parking lot. For a moment, they stood there under the streetlights, the three of them connected, a family for a few more minutes. "This doesn't change how much we love you," Caroline told Emma one more time, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "You're going to have two parents who adore you, who would do anything for you, who think you're the most special girl in the entire world." "I know, Mommy," Emma said with the wisdom of someone far older. She hugged Caroline, then Daniel, then insisted they all hug together, her small body the bridge between them. Daniel and Caroline's eyes met over their daughter's head. In that moment, they both saw everything. The teenagers who'd fallen in love at a football game, the young adults who'd navigated college long distance, the couple who danced at their wedding to At Last, the terrified new parents holding their premature baby for the first time, the gradual erosion of connection, the painful decision to let go. "We made something pretty amazing," Daniel said softly, stroking Emma's hair. "We did," Caroline agreed. "Whatever else happens, we did that." They separated, each heading to their own cars now that they'd been living apart for weeks in preparation for this final split. Emma would go with Caroline tonight, come back to Daniel on Thursday. They'd worked out a schedule, purchased duplicate toys and clothes so she wouldn't have to pack bags constantly. As Caroline buckled Emma into her car seat, she looked back at Rousseau's one last time. The chandeliers glowed in the windows, the place where her adult life had truly begun with a proposal and was now ending with a goodbye. She wondered if they'd ever come back here, perhaps. Years from now, when the wounds had healed enough that they could be friends attending Emma's graduation or wedding together. Emma chattered in the back seat about the sparkly dress lady and the chocolate dessert as Caroline drove toward their new apartment, their new life. In the rearview mirror, she could see Daniel's headlights following them for a few blocks before he turned off toward what used to be their home. The last evening at Rousseau's was over. Tomorrow they would begin the process of becoming separate people instead of a unit, of being co-parents instead of partners. They would learn to navigate school pickups and holiday schedules, to bite back criticism and work together for Emma's sake. But tonight, in the quiet of the car with their daughter's voice floating from the back seat, Caroline let herself grieve. Grieve for the marriage that had died slowly over years of neglect, for the family structure that would never be the same, for all the moments they'd never have. No more inside jokes, no one to come home to and tell about her day, no one to share parenting victories and struggles with in real time. Love, she'd learned, wasn't always enough. Sometimes two good people could create something beautiful together and still not be meant to last. Sometimes the kindest thing was to let go before love curdled into resentment, before Emma's home became a battlefield. "Mommy?" Emma's voice broke through her thoughts. "Will you and Daddy still be friends?" Caroline wiped away fresh tears before her daughter could see. "Yes, sweetheart. We'll always be friends. We'll always be your parents. And we'll always love you more than anything." It wasn't a lie exactly. They would work toward friendship, toward civil cooperation, toward showing their daughter that even when romantic love ends, family bonds could endure in a different form. They would try. The lights of their new apartment building came into view, and Caroline took a deep breath. This was their reality now, two homes, two lives, one beloved child connecting them forever. They would make it work because Emma deserved nothing less than two parents who tried their best, even in separation. The last evening at Rousseau's was over, but somehow life would continue, different, sadder, fractured, but continuing nonetheless. And maybe, just maybe, in time it would even be okay. That was what Caroline told herself as she carried a sleeping Emma upstairs, Mr. Buttons clutched tight in her small arms, ready to wake up tomorrow to their new normal. A normal where family dinners would never again mean all three of them together at the same table, where celebrations would be carefully coordinated, where love persisted in a new, more complicated form. The chandeliers at Rousseau's would continue to glow for other families, other proposals, other celebrations. But for Caroline and Daniel, They would always remember that particular glow on the last evening they spent together as the family they'd once been, saying goodbye to everything they'd hoped to be.